Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is the Level 1 recording for Lesson 5 of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today's date, January 23rd. Thank you so much for joining me. So today, the topic for Level 1 is all about the mind. And, in the recorded online lessons, this is there's usually two parts to each hour. The first part is a guided meditation, or like very loosely guided meditation, because what I make very clear in that, what it is like a image of the lasagna kind of bouncing around and my voice. I don't really want to color people's experience of meditating. So it's really done more as encouragement and inspiration. And here is how I approach the idea of sharing meditation with other people. Let me just also rearrange my chair. There are so many different approaches to mindfulness and meditation, and basically unhacking or taming the hacked operating system that we know as the human intellect. So there are many teachers that already teach about this. So I'm going to teach about the things that I am an expert on in this class, with the understanding that's just like saying, okay, like if we're talking about fitness, there's 12 million different ways to get fit. You can do it by doing push-ups, or you can do it by playing volleyball, or you can do it by, 10 million different types of sports. So meditation is the same way. And I would encourage everyone to find the approach to meditation that works most effectively for them and their lifestyle and their metabolism. So to give, one example, like I'm very active. I make paintings, I make artwork. I feel more comfortable doing stuff and less comfortable simply sitting immobile and watching my thoughts. So I find the most effective form of meditation for me are things like doing my paintings, doing artwork, doing drawings, playing music when I'm really good at it. And I also do physical activity, something like, cardio, like something like walking or, working out on some machine where you don't really have to be focused on your physical activities so much, but you can just kind of be moving your body and let your mind go a little bit. So those are the types of meditations that I embrace, things that are a bit more active. Some people love things like just sitting quietly. Some people do. This is also interesting. So Karine is a lovely student of this class. She's not logged in today, but she does sometimes have computer access, and she can log in for the live webinars. And she described her practice of doing the FRL meditation to me. And hers does not involve a lot of physical movement, even though she is moving on a subcellular level. So what I'm trying to say is there's no right and there's no wrong. There are different approaches. And I would encourage each student to find the approach that works for them in terms of turning off the mind. So now let me grab my notes over here. I'm sorry, I'm ducking off camera. I always make meticulous, extensive notes, just like making lists before I go to the grocery store. And then usually I leave the notes at home, as list at home, and I don't remember what I need to get at the grocery store. So I have everything written down over here. The first thing is this idea of mind as infestation. And I hope you can see my face. That's not because the sun gets bright back there and then my face goes into shadow. Mind as infestation. And let's also talk about what is the mind. Grabbing my magic trackpad so I can magically write and draw things. Let me first show you a little picture here. So this is a familiar image at this point for anyone who's been in this class for a little while. Let me make sure you can see my face a little bit bigger. There we go. This shows accurately the different chakras or energy centers that go up and down the human figure. And this level of yellow where I'm making a line right here, that is generally, that is the place that humans define themselves from. I call this, it's the human daily waking intellect. And when I say that, I mean waking, because we have a dreaming mind. We have the aspect of self and the cognitive processes that we experience when we are dreaming at night. And this is a different level than the level of yellow, which is our daily waking human intellect, what would be considered also the rational mind. So the first thing is, so yellow is a natural part of the rainbow. I want you to understand this. It's not like some invader species came along and said, now I'm going to paint this part of your body yellow. That's not what they did. Yellow is a part of us. But what happened was this yellow aspect of, these various energy centers became hacked. It became, let's say, distorted, or it became askew. It became, the best word I can use is infested. That's not our true mind. Our true mind is really at this level up here, the level of pure insight. So let's say I'm defining these terms from our experience as who we are and what we are right now, not who we are and what we were in, let's say, ancient Atlantis. So right now we have this insight, this non-verbal, non-language expressed pure understanding. It's pure insight. When I say non-language expressed, I'm certain that all of us have had the experience of either being in a dream or being in a dream state where you know something, but you do not know it verbally. Like you're in a dream and you're like, I'm looking for the, whatever, the purple banana. I'm looking for the purple, but you don't say that with your mind. You just know that that is what you're looking for. That's what insight is. Insight literally means something that you know that is not verbalized. That is our true mind. That's what's happening at this level where I'm making the big white circle. And the energy impulses come from higher dimensional, less dense realms, and they spiral downwards and they come through our energy centers. So first it comes, the basic abstract information comes into our insight, our inner nonverbal system of perception. And then it goes through all of these other subsequent energy centers. They're kind of like water wheels or interlocking gears, and it gets to the level of human intellect, which is where we actually have a verbalized thought. So we can have an insight. What I'm using the silly example from a dream. I'm looking for the purple banana, but we don't actually say that to ourselves until the thought energy impulse reaches this level. And then the challenge is that language, the inner verbalization that says, I am looking for the purple banana, that is the thing that is an overlay, that is not natural to who and what we are, and is part of the genetic modification, the genetic squashing, the distortion that happened to us as part of being made into our present format. So some of the things that changed as we're made into our present format, our source of food changed. We stopped being pure light eaters, right? I'm touching my telescope here and I'm pointing out there to the sun. It's a beautiful sunny day. We went from being pure light eaters who don't have to have the intermediary of whatever chocolate cookies to now needing the intermediary of chocolate cookies. And that was part of the genetic degradation. Our food changed. And also our ability to understand things without language also changed. It became no longer possible to connect directly mind to mind, like the Vulcan mind meld, right? Like I will just stick my face on you, I'll put my hand on your face, and you guys will just understand everything. But it wasn't like that in the ancient times. What mind-to-mind connection was really done on a bridge of love, and it is done through nonverbal symbol structure, which is kind of like what my paintings are or what these diagrams are. So the difference in experience, if I hold up this diagram and I say to you with my verbal voice, to your daily waking human intellect, this is an energy center. This is the time field. This is the membrane of death. This is this. Like I'm the narrator, pointing at different things and telling you with my voice, this is what this is. When you are activated and looking through your eye of insight touches on things. And your eye of insight touches on this shape, like touching this shape. And without words, this is the shape of time. And you touch on this shape and you say, oh, that is the membrane of death. And you touch on this shape and you say, oh, that is the convergence point or the source of everything. Oh, now I'm touching on the ascension timeline. Like whatever you touch on, you are sensing, like tasting with your tongue, and you sense it innately, and you do not need a narrator to describe it to you. So that is the big difference. And once we begin to narrate or put those raw concepts into the wrapper or covering of verbalized language, a huge amount of distortion occurs. So I call the yellow language, and so in the chakra, so this is right here, right below the heart, but above the emotions. This is the level of human intellect. That is a distorted way of, let me drink water. When we are little tiny children, we come here and we are totally connected to higher dimensional, less dense realms, and we are not yet verbal. Little tiny children, little infants. I've been like so lucky to be a professional babysitter and a nanny and take care of little infants at that level. They are not stupid at all. They're totally intelligent, very wise, and very connected to the stellar network. And I'll talk in level 2 all about stellar consciousness and stellar personality characteristics. These little babies when they start to learn verbal language. And so this is a download that happens, just like you download a program from your computer, even though you guys know, I'm not a transhumanist, I'm just using these analogies. You download this operating system called OS Human that involves the app or the sub-program of language, and that allows you to communicate effectively with the rest of the people that are humans that are here. It's a necessary survival technique because you're a little tiny baby and you're like, wow, like I'm hungry, my diaper is poopy, I need something. And you need to learn how to communicate that because the people around you are not telepathic. This is the big takeaway. Like we all download that operating system, even though it's hacked, even though it's distorted, because we need to be able to communicate effectively to other people our basic needs. And so that's the necessity of it. And the problem is that we, give this language structure and the capacity to communicate linguistically to little tiny infants, but we never give them the off button or the pause button. So we teach babies how to understand phonetic symbol structures. Sounds have structure, sounds have meaning. This is the meaning of the structured sounds. And we teach them to formulate inner thought with those symbol structures. This is verbalized thought. And it's implanting something that then runs all the time and does not actually have an off button. It is like a form of abuse. It is a horrible thing to do to a child. What we should do, first of all, you should always have, it shouldn't be a hacked system. It should be something that if you choose to use it, you can press pause or you can press stop. Imagine a big red button that's like stop. And then the mind actually stops. So now and I'll get to questions and comments. Now I want to get into the idea of verbalized thought as being evidence of a inefficient system. Just like if you have a motor or an engine. I'm pointing out my window because sometimes you have these motorcycles. These motorcycles come down the street. They always make my dog bark because she hates the loud noise. And I want to say to them, your motors are loud and inefficient because in mechanical architecture, anytime that you have sound, what you really have is friction. You have an inefficient engine. That a completely efficient engine is silent. That there's no friction. As the parts of the machine move against each other, there's no friction, so it does not produce heat, and it does not produce sound, and that also means that all of the energy that's in the motor is actually going towards the kinetic movement that it's supposed to be used towards. Same thing with our minds. I want everyone to understand from this presentation that whenever you hear a verbalized mind, like, I am hungry, I want to go eat peanut butter and jelly, that is the evidence of friction within your own mind as you are moving through the time field. So if we imagine like this is like a helicopter, this is you, it's your chakras, it's also like a helicopter, and you're flying along on a timeline through the time field. And as you're flying along, when you experience verbalized thought, what you're experiencing is wibble wobbling, friction, like turbulence in the air, and that those turbulences literally slow down the vitality of the life force energy that we are supposed to have flowing through us like a perpetual motion machine that is frictionless. So in previous lessons, what I said was when you move through time at just the right rate, 1 moment per moment through time, make that louder. You make a tone of love, I'm moving through time at 1 moment per moment, yeah. And it's like being Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man. Chomp, chomp, chomp. You're chomping 1 moment per moment. But when we have friction, what is happening is we're moving through time, but we're not utilizing all of the energy that we have available to us effectively in each moment. That energy is being scattered or dispersed. So I've spoken about how that dispersion happens through attention, being focused on the events of the past, or being anticipatory of events of the future. So instead of just being in the moment now, part of you might be focused on what's back here, part of you might be lunging forward for what's over here, but you're not completely centered in what is here. And the verbalized mind does a similar sense of destabilization from the moment now. Now I want to show you another picture that graphically depicts what is going on here. Put this one down. I'll show you this one. Okay, so this little sketch is an accurate depiction of the higher faculties. And let me just get a little color so that I can draw on here. This down here, this is your heart, and your heart is, this is green, the color of the heart, and your heart actually creates this big, giant force field that I'm highlighting in green, that both the muscular pumping mechanism of your heart, which has many different muscular layers, that are just like you have 7 chakras, you have many different muscular layers of the heart, all of which is working together like in harmonic overtones to make beautiful music. You're making this music with your heart, and it creates this energy field. And in this drawing, you can see it, and in my gestures here, you can see it. It makes kind of like a platform right here underneath, at the top of your shoulders and underneath your chin, that you have, imagine a big giant whirling energy field whirling all around you. The more inner silence that you can cultivate, the faster and stronger and more powerful your whirling energy field of love is. To reiterate, the verbalized mind is friction. It slows down your moving energy field. It's like, I'm trying to move, but I have all of these friction thoughts that are slowing me down. You can tell it's like moving through molasses. So, or bicycle wheels that are not moving fast. If your bicycle wheels are moving fast, nothing's going to knock you over. If your bicycle wheels are moving slow, then it's like you're wibbling and wobbling, and it's very easy to make you teeter-totter over on your side. This is all about what love actually is. Love is actually a stabilization energy field. It is the fulcrum of your energy centers, the fulcrum of your body, and it creates, like I say, a stable platform. Let me draw this over here, upon which the rest of your higher faculties can balance. So this is the stable platform. The faster and more energy your heart movement has, your unconditional love movement has, that tone, the louder and better and purer your tone of love is, the more stable the rest of your higher faculties can be, resting upon that. So I've also said, and let me just drink a little bit of water here, that being able to cultivate unconditional love is a prerequisite for being able to, enter the university of the universe, the higher faculties. It's also part of being able to, I'm sorry that I'm trying to find my words. Let me just drink some water. Focus effectively in time, like focus your attention completely on this moment now to be able to perceive through higher faculties. So none of this is by accident. The idea that humanity was intentionally genetically degraded to no longer have access to the higher faculties and be able to see through time and be telepathic and cultivate the body using, what would be considered miraculous or magical techniques, but instead to implant some impediment, like the Harrison Bergeron, the obstacles that make you less you, that make you less superhuman. And that is what the intellectual mind is. So now I'm drawing this down here below the level of the heart is the intellectual mind. And if we destabilize this, if we make it, oh, look, I'm going on this direction. Oh, look, I'm going on this direction. First I'm like this, then I'm like this, then I'm like this. Then you can destabilize the heart. This is what has happened. So we have the actions of the hacked human operating system known as the mind, human mind right now, destabilizing your ability to be unconditionally loving. And unconditionally loving, this is not romantic love. This is not like, oh, I want to hug you, I want to kiss you, I want to smooch you or stroke your head. This is not that type of love. It's the type of cosmic love making that we do when we are sending out an equal amount of energy that we are receiving back to us. So wait, okay, but before I do that, can I move this thing? Hold on. Let me do this, move this aside. Good, because I want to show you this. So this drawing does not have the colors of the chakras in there. Good. But it does have, let me get a big thing that I can draw with over here. It does have very accurate, it shows the accuracy of how these energy centers fit together. So here's your heart in this, let's do it in the right colors. Do that in green. Here's your heart. All right. And you can see that line right down there rests on top of this line. This is the interplay of heart plus intellect. So this yellow, that's the, hold on a second, let me draw that line better. Sometimes it's hard for me to control my pen, and sometimes it's hard for me to see where things are going. I didn't do it right. Here we go. So this is green. This is yellow right here. This is yellow right down here. And I'm making squinty, scrolly faces too. So this, let's consider this line that I'm drawing. It's like a smile. Oops, that's not a very accurate line. But you see where I'm highlighting, right? It's the inner swoop of the yellow chakra. There's an inner swoop. It's like a cup, like my hand is cupped like this, right? And let me go back to green. I know this drawing is not the best drawing, but this drawing over here, this is green. And the green, can you see that lower swoop of that fits on the upper swoop of yellow? So if I used my hands in the thumbnail, I hope you can see this. The green, like lower vortex, is shaped like this. And the little edge where it connects with yellow connects right onto yellow like this. This is part of the interlocking gears or the water wheels of the energy systems of your body. So if we destabilize yellow and make it go caca cuckoo with all sorts of erroneous programs, then we can also destabilize the heart. And if you destabilize the heart and you make this system extremely inefficient, then it means that you don't have enough gas in your car to make you go, that's it, that's it. The whole idea that your energy, your heart, unconditional love, that tone that you emit is the gas that makes your car go. Sorry, there's loud things outside. It's the necessary fuel for your insight and these higher faculties to do. So this is, it's all intentional, is what I'm trying to say. It's a horrible story. Oh, hello, your planet's been invaded and they've implanted this horrible mind into you, and it's intentionally done in order to distract you and fritter your energy away so that you cannot be as loving as you were intended to be, so that you cannot be as divine and as divinely connected as you were intended to be. So the solution, because I'm never going to talk about the horrible situation without coming up with solutions. The solution is learning to supersede that hacked operating system. So the ways that I do that, so I certainly have practiced things like just sitting quietly and peacefully, and different schools of meditation are like, you can sit quietly and peacefully and just observe. Well, what I found at certain points in my experience was that I could sit in silence, and that just developing some silence gave me a little bit of a buffer zone between myself and my emotional reactivity and my attachments and the thoughts that I perceived. And the more inner silence that I cultivated, the more perspective I had on, are these thoughts actually me? Where are these thoughts coming from? What is actually happening here? And the more that I began to identify with a part of me that has the ability to be silent. So I would encourage everyone to, it's like a refinement process inside of you. Being able to distance yourself from your thoughts and from your intellect, being able to examine it and analyze it and determine what aspects are really me, what aspects are not really me. And what I found was that most of it wasn't really me. Most of it was highly influenced or distorted. And my real true mind is the mind that I am when I'm painting, when I'm like looking at these patterns, when I'm doing this. So that what I found was I could set up my life so that I was, for the most part, using my time to cultivate the true parts of myself. So like I say this, when I'm doing my paintings, I don't have to think like, oh, I have to pick up the red pen. I have to pick up the paintbrush, move your arm over here, move your pinky over here. I don't have to think verbalized thoughts. And at the same time, if I'm going to learn a piano song, I don't think like, move your pinky over here, move your thumb over here. It is wordless. If I have to think, then I'm definitely slowing down and screwing up because I'm thinking things in the wrong way. So I have engineered my life to be able to perform all of these activities for most of the time during the day that do not involve my verbalized mind. And I would encourage everyone to do that as much as they possibly can. So yes, spending time in inner silence and just contemplation is a way of getting more energy in your energy banks. The faster that you can get your heart to spin, the more heart energy you can get. And you get that from inner silence. So the more that you can still the verbalized thoughts and not pay attention to them, literally, not feed them with attention, then the more energy you have here that is actually spinning at a faster rate. And then the more that this spins at a faster rate, the more accurate and active these levels of perception can be. So and I also found, like, I would go into silence, I would start to get energy, like it's like getting energy, it's like getting money in your bank. And then I had money in my bank account, and then like, oh, I want to talk about everything, because the energy would go from my intellect through my heart. I get money in my bank account, and then I want to talk about everything that I'm beginning to feel and perceive. So I'm like, oh, I want to write something down. I want to paint something. I want to draw something. I want to do it. And I found that I had to be like just hold off on that impulse, because then the energy is going to come through from communication up to insight. Going to understand more. Before I open my mouth and start to talk and write about what I'm feeling, I can actually understand more. And then I even stop and I wait, because I can even go further. If I get all the way up to here, I can understand on an abstract level. So I would encourage everyone to do this. Like, save your money in your bank account. Don't just buy the first pair of shoes that you're trying on. Like, oh, these are good shoes. These are good shoes. That's like when you want to just talk about all the things that you're seeing and feeling for the first time. It's like, I want to get these. I want to get these. Like, wait. Try on the next pair of shoes. That's like, get your energy to this perspective. And then you're like, oh, wait, now these feel even more comfortable. But wait, don't even settle for less. Go to the best pair of shoes. And that's abstraction. So when I paint these paintings here, as you see going on in the background here, this is abstraction. And this came from cultivating my love energy without frittering it away through verbalized friction, to the point that I can book time on the inner telescope and be able to look at these images and see what I want to see. And then I, of course, like take a snapshot with my perception, and then I come back into ordinary waking reality, and then I start drawing. That's what I do. So like I was telling you, when I first started to raise my energy up through love, and then I would get the energy to here, I'm like, I want to draw it. I want to say it. I want to write it out. I want to tell everyone all about it. I wait. And I go all the way up to this perspective, and even up to this perspective, and I really take a look. What does this face really look like? What does this landscape really look like? Take a snapshot of it, and then I come back down. And then I go into the expression of it. So, okay, wait. And let me also, before I go to questions and comments, let me make sure that I've gone through all the most amazing, most important things that I've got written down here. Reading and the reading response. This is another thing. Let me eat, drink. So we teach children to verbalize in two different ways. First, we teach children, like they're little tiny infants, they don't even understand things. We teach them basic sound structures so that they can communicate with us. And one of the points I wanted to make was, if you don't download OS Human and you don't run the verbal, language app, you are considered mentally less able. You are considered mentally disabled. And there's nothing wrong with people that have a mental deficit. But what it means is that you can have the most brilliant inspirations in here, like a private computer program that you're running on your desktop, but you have no way to connect it to the rest of the world. And that's what I think it is for many people, that there are many people who are, they would say, developmentally disabled. They have a wonderful structure of perception inside of their mind, but they do not have the language and operating system to be able to connect that effectively to the rest of the world. And that is the challenge. So if you want to share your programs, share your software, share with your output, your creative output with the rest of the world, you got to learn to flap your moving mouth parts. And it also means you can communicate that you have a dirty diaper and that you're hungry and thirsty or something like that. So, but the downside is that we do not give them the off button. That's when you're like a little tiny infant. Then you go to school. So you've already become verbal, but you are not yet literate. And the literacy is the next level of the hack of the human operating system. Because once you are taught to read, so now we have a different level of symbol structure that is coming inside of us. There's a reflex that is called the reading reflex, or the reading response. If I hold up a sign, whatever, if the sign says the word red, then you read, and if you are literate and you read that, you can't stop yourself from reading that sign. If it says red, if it says buy something, that's what advertising is. Advertising is a type of assault where words are written on a screen and they're shown to you without your willpower, without your initiation. And then you have to read them whether you want it to or not. Buy, on sale now, whatever that thing is. So that it's a reflex. If you are literate and words are shown to your visual field, you will read them whether you want to or not. And our reading, like we have a little inner narrator that when you see a sign, reads the sign to you. So these are literal assaults and intrusions coming to you from your visual field, from your eyeballs, from the world around you, from pop-up ads or billboards or whatever, that is information that is coming in that is not necessarily desirable. Now, let me go to questions and comments. I have more to say, but I don't want to get too far along on the journey before I okay, you know what I'm talking about, because I'm sure that there's important things. Joelle says, individuality and approach is so important. We are also different and special. That's exactly it. This is just like saying training your body. Not everybody should go through the exact same training regimen. It's not like the Marines where it's like, everybody do 100 push-ups, everybody do 100 sit-ups. Like, that's not right for everybody's body. Like, you might not be able to do conventional sit-ups. You do a different modified exercise. So everybody needs to figure out the exact exercise regimen they need to do in order to cultivate unconditional love. That's what meditation and mindfulness is. And there are many different approaches to be able to do this. So that's why, like, I don't feel like if someone's already written a recipe, I'm like, go read their recipe book. They've already got the recipe for spanakopita completely figured out. I don't have to write that recipe for you. However, what I will tell you is that mastering the capacity to press pause on your verbal mind is essential for being able to get up to these levels of inner perception. And once you do that, like I'm telling you, no offense to anyone here, but it is exhausting to have to flap the moving mouth parts. The friction of like, oh my God, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. We have to put this into words. It is like, it takes a lot of energy to do that. So you might even find that you're like, yes, I prefer the smooth, seamless, like surfing or gliding along without having to think at all. And I think that what I notice when I'm in a flow state, meaning I'm doing a project that I love or whatever, I'm in my peak moment as, you know, a creative person, then I don't have an internal dialogue. So this is all about shutting down the internal dialogue in order to foster the necessary resources to be able to awaken the higher faculties. That's what this lesson is all about. Joelle says, Aurora, I have noticed that when just turning off verbalized thoughts, my eye of insight gets stronger and more vivid. Thank you for that. So the eye of insight, this is just like building muscles. This is the whole point. We are cultivating ourselves. And of course, we have been prevented from effective, like imagine if you were born and for, you know, the first 20 years of your life, like your arms were like strapped to your sides and you could never actually move them. Then miraculously, the restraints are removed. Then like you would have very skinny arms, like you would have very weak arms. You have to start the exercise. You have to learn how to do it. And also you would have to learn fine motor skills. You would have to learn like, how do you pick up a little tiny thing? How do you move it over here? How do you being able to write or draw? If you had always had your arms strapped to your side your whole life, you could never figure those things out. This is what it is like to have the mind implanted in humanity. That for most of our experiences, you know, we have some freedom in thought structure before we get the implanted human mind. Then we get implanted. That's like having your arms strapped to your side. So when we begin to meditate, when we begin to get to levels of nonverbal insight and self-expression, that's like just starting to be able to move our arms. We've got to build muscles of insight and develop also control. When I talk about this as being like a tendril that reaches out, it is just like an elephant's trunk or like, you know, a limb or something like that. You have to learn how to control it. Because at first you're like, woo, waving it wildly all over, waving wildly all over. And the experience of that, what it feels like to the first person experiencer is, first I'm seeing this, then I'm thinking this, then I'm thinking this, then I'm thinking this. Like you're all over the place. You're all over the place. And it is much better to be guided by the higher dimensional librarian that tells you, first, look over here and learn about this. Then look over, I direct your attention over here and learn about this. Then I direct your attention over here and learn about this. So there's actually a whole melody or lovely order of events for sharing information that you do it in such a way so that it actually makes sense. So thank you for telling me about that, Joelle. It's like encouragement to everyone. Like, yes, we grow our muscles. The more that you do this, the more that you grow the muscles and the easier and more fluid it becomes. So Pedro says, does that work for the Merkaba too? Faster is better. I'm thinking, how can I answer this question? Here is a little wooden shaped Merkaba that I found. I was going through some old Christmas ornaments and I managed to find it. You have to get your Merkaba up to a certain speed in order for it to be moving optimally. However, beyond that optimal function, you don't have to make it go faster and faster and faster. So let's say it's analogous to like a compost heap or some kind of biodynamic, setup like that. My compost heap, if it's too cold or if there's not enough material, it doesn't actually burn. It doesn't actually, digest, doesn't actually do anything. It just kind of sits there. We got to get enough material. We got to get it warm enough outside. You got to get enough moisture and heat to get it to optimum levels, to critical mass, and then it's doing it. But, if it's 80 degrees out or if it's 100 degrees out, like it doesn't necessarily get better after 100 degrees. If it's 200 degrees out or 500 degrees out, my compost heap does not necessarily get better from doing that. So in terms of doing the Merkaba, you need to be able to spin your counter-rotating fields effectively up to a certain level. And once you get up to that level, it's like momentum on a bicycle, like you're stable, you're steady. Adding more momentum to that at a certain point, it's not necessarily going to make you more steady. It's not necessarily going to make you more anything and more better. So I would say find the optimum amount of spin to be protected, to be stable, to be comfortable, but you don't have to go up to like 500 degrees. 80 degrees, 85 degrees is good, 95 degrees is good, but it doesn't have to be 10,000 degrees. Joelle says the Heart Math Institute talks about how the electromagnetic field of the heart is 60 times greater than the brain. So thank you for that. So your heart, just on the physical sense of what physical, objective materialist science can sense with their machinery, the heart has an electromagnetic field that is the end result of the kinetic movements of your actual heart muscles. And your brain also does have an electromagnetic field. And this is what an electroencephalogram measures. But electroencephalograms are just very weak. Like if you have music that is emanating from your brain, it can only sense the music that is like right next to the speakers. Like it's not listening from far away, and it cannot sense the music that comes from the deep interior of your brain. Like they just glue electrodes to the outer surface of your scalp, and they can sense some of the music that your brain is emitting. So this is really important to understand, like Stone Age technology in terms of measuring the field that comes off of our brains in terms of conventional medicine, like what is available to the regular, people in regular human healthcare system, not, fancy people that might be, part of research science or something like that. Because I think that they have been able to neurally perceive and map the neural structure of the brain much more effectively now, but it's not technology that is available to everyone. So the music that your brain is emitting that science can measure, yes, is not as loud and strong and powerful as the music that your heart is emitting. However, those brain emissions, it's the hacked operating system. Okay, if I move some things over here, this is this is the music of that's your heart, and this is your hacked mind. Like that is a very weak song because it is not harmonically integrated. So we can get our mind to play music like that, to be along with our heart. That's what I'm trying to say. These two aspects of anatomy are not intended to be at odds with one another. In this context, due to the hack of the human operating system and the conscious intrusions of the verbalized mind, they often are at odds with each other. So yes, if you have to make a choice, like definitely go with your heart, and the brain and the human intellect can be rehabilitated. So we don't have to just say, okay, I'm just going to turn off the off button and just do art and music all the time, and the intellect is going to be always horribly disfigured. No, it doesn't have to be that way. The intellect can be, let's say, fixed up, resculpted. It's like unhacked. The intellect can be unhacked. But I think you should awaken your higher faculties before you try to unhack your intellect. Because it's like being a computer analyst. You have to be able to look at the code and say, what's screwed up around here? What's not going right? So that's like the final level of meditation. It's not just pressing pause on the mind. It's being able to have the capacity to heal the mind and actually restructure everything so that there's no longer this friction. So Lou says, Joelle, I'm skeptical about the whole Heart Math Institute info. I would rather keep my awareness up higher than the heart. Good. Keep practicing my techniques so that I can someday maintain a more permanent awareness in my head region as opposed to the one that is swayed and thus less permanent. Yeah, so I think that's a really good refinement of that, Salu. The heart is meant to be the fulcrum of this whole entire rainbow system, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. This is not the pinnacle. This is the fulcrum. It's a foundation upon which all of these other understanding, or let's call them perceptions, All of these other abilities to perceive sit upon that. And our heart, this really is the basis of our true mind, and the distractions that we are required to participate in during the day is what takes us away from that basic tone of being invested fully in time. Anytime you have to use your mind to think what is going to happen in the future, or to think about the past, that takes us out of the now. And guess what? Like, I live here in this world with everyone else. I have to have a calendar, and I have to be like, oh, on Thursday, I have to pay my electric bill. Oh, last Tuesday, I did this. Like, I have to be a part of it, because otherwise, whatever, I'd live in a cave. I wouldn't have a home and a computer to be able to connect effectively with humanity. So I'm say that in order to say basically the same challenges that everybody is facing here. I don't live in a cave on a mountaintop with no rent. I do all these things. So I'm like, oh, I got to look at the calendar and expect and know that that's going to happen. It's a fine art to be able to be within this socioeconomic matrix and still be in the present now. So in present moment now. So I would encourage everyone to set up their lives in a way so that they can spend the maximum amount of their time using their true mind, and the minimum amount of their time doing the temporal tasks that we are required to by society. Joel responds to Salu, I totally understand, never trust any organization fully. I'm agreeing with you on that. But you can find truth everywhere. I think that's the heart and brain are both important. Balance is everything. We don't want to cut ourselves off from the heart or any part of ourselves. I think that's good. So this is head is in between the brows. I know. Salu is referring to this, what I would call your true mind, your insight, that true nonverbal perception and expression. Pedro says, like a video game, you save energy until you can use your power, but wait so you can use a better power, and you keep saving to use your superpower. I loved your analogies. Thank you very much, Pedro. That's very perceptive. That is exactly what it is. In fact, in the Far East, in the Hindu tradition, I believe, I'm not sure, Hindu or Buddhist, there's this Siddhi, Siddhi. It is the idea that as you are meditating your way towards enlightenment and your energy is rising up through these various energy fields, that you'll be faced with like temptations. Like, I'm a waiter showing you hors d'oeuvres on the plate, like, oh, do you want this magical power? And if you're like, yeah, I want that magical power, then you stop at that level and you don't get to the next level of personal development. So they're kind of like temptations. Like, you're like, oh, I want the cream puff. If you eat the cream puff, then you don't get to true spiritual expansion. So I'm always encouraging everyone, go for the real diamond. Don't go for the mere cubic zirconia. So the shiny trinkets, these are things like, oh, I want to have anything that serves the ego, anything where it's like, I want to show everybody how great I am. Like, I want to show you, I want to prove it to you. Like, those are ego motivations. This is the level of the ego. And again, there's many spiritual traditions that say you have to kill your ego. You have to get rid of your ego. I'm not telling everyone to do that. What I'm saying is that the ego needs to be refined. The intellect needs to be refined. We need to have a pause or a stop button on the verbal intellect. And the ego is like an interface that we use to be able to effectively connect with other humans. We don't have to get rid of it. It's like you take off all your clothes and walk around naked. Like, you can do that, but you don't have to get rid of all clothes. But we can make clothing comfortable and functional and fashionable. So that's the idea, that the daily waking intellect and the ego or sense of self that arises from that daily waking intellect is comfortable, appropriate, fashionable, not this extremely constricted straitjacket that we have been forced into. Like, you're stuck. You can't move your arms. You cannot move your imagination. You cannot do the things that you wish to do. So very good suggestion about the video game. And so in order to win the video game, don't bypass the temptations. The waiter will say, do you want these tasty cream puffs? Be like, no, thank you. I'm going towards pure enlightenment. No cream puffs for me. And what you find out when you get to pure enlightenment, or let's say when you reach that final pinnacle, you get all the cream puffs you want. But you're not that interested in cream puffs. You're not that interested in things like, oh, now I have magical powers that I can use to show everybody, like, look how magical I am. What you're more interested in is following the real music of the cosmos, which says, use your powers like this, do this like this. Don't just use your powers for showing off, use your powers for specific, expressions that are part of the harmonic symphony of the cosmos. Salu says cultivation of technique. Yes, exactly, in response to not falling for the cream puffs. Joelle says, wait, so you're saying that by being silent in the mind, meditating without language, that you're building up and saving energy? Yes, I love you. Thank you. I love you. And I want you to know, like, I love everyone who's in this class. I love everyone who's here, whether you're making comments and whether you're, participating or whether you're just listening. Thank you for being here. And also thank you, Joelle, for your insight and for making that comment. The more that we sit in silence, or that we can cultivate silence during our daily activities, the more you are saving energy. And when I've spoken in previous classes about using this tendril, book time on the inner telescope, it's expensive. This is a massive, it's like the Hubble telescope. It costs billions of dollars. It costs a lot of money to see through the inner telescope. So you got to save your energy, not fritter it away through inefficiencies like the verbalized mind. And also, look, I have something loud outside the window. Hold on a second. The verbalized mind is a very inefficient way of perceiving and navigating the world. That is using reason and intellect. I've used this example before. If we say my studio here, in my studio, sometimes like the floor has, I've got a coffee cup over here, I threw my sweater on the floor over here, there's a tripod over there. And let's say that you are blind, you cannot see. And you come into my studio and you're like, I'm just going to use my intellect and reason to navigate across this obstacle course. And you think, well, on most Wednesdays, Aurora comes in at 10:30 and she places her sweater over here. So there's a 10% likelihood that the sweater will be here. So I'm not going to walk over there. And there's likely that the coffee cup will be here. Like, you do all these calculations, but it's not based on perception. And then, whatever, you step on my coffee cup anyway, because you were thinking your way across the obstacle field as opposed to perceiving. When we are working from this yellow center, we are thinking our way across the time field. I'm thinking what's going to happen in the future. I'm thinking, I want this to happen, or I'm trying to make this happen. I'm trying to understand the world through an intellectual filter, as opposed to pure perception, which is when you can actually see. When you come in through my door and you look at the studio and you say, oh, I don't have to reason as to whether there's a coffee cup or a sweater on the floor. I can see it. So that is what happens when you can actually see the future. You can see through time. You don't reason with your intellect. So let's use an example, like, investing in a stock market type of thing. If you're using your intellect, you're like, oh, I'm looking at the charts and I'm calculating, I'm going to carry the one, and then this is what's going to happen on this, what I'm going to do, for investing my money. And that's a different approach than saying, I could see time, I could see the future, and I could see what's going to happen with the market, and I'm going to make my choices based upon what I literally see in the future, as opposed to what my intellectual calculations tell me I should do. So Erica says, what you're saying about communicating your knowledge is exactly right. I have quote unquote learning difficulties, and you're explaining my reality so perfectly. Thank you. Good. Joel says, oh my God, I hate advertising. It's almost like you can't get away from it. It's everywhere. Yes. And advertising is literally a type of an assault. It is like a mental assault that makes it difficult for you to maintain your own trajectory. So you could be driving down the road, or even like most of the advertising I see now is on my screen. I'm like trying to read, some article about something that is important to me, and some advertising comes up, or there's something I have to click on before I can read the actual article. And it's an assault. It's like, oh, I wanted to learn about whatever, pandas in China. I didn't want to read this stupid thing about whatever, how to regrow hair on body parts. Like, no, that's not what I want. So yeah, your mind and perception wants to go down a particular road, and then advertising turns your attention to a different pathway. And then you have to have strong muscles of willpower that say, no, I'm not going to look at your advertising. I'm not going to get their magical hair regrowth serum. I'm going to read the article that I wanted to read. And that requires willpower, and it's very, very challenging. That is basically, in a nutshell, the mind control that we experience here all the time. The mind control is not just from advertising, but it's also from Wi-Fi, from smart meters, from satanic technology, basically, technological mind control all the time is always trying to take our steering wheel of attention askew and making it very difficult for us to stay focused. And so we have to be super muscle man, like whatever, Arnold Schwarzenegger of the mind, to be able to stay focused and not be drawn askew. So, my physical body is small, but my mental body has the biggest giant muscles of being able to stay focused and stay on target, even amidst all of the crazy distractions that we experience here. Because I've been doing this, I've been cultivating my mental muscles for a long time. That's it. I'm like a mental muscle bodybuilder. Pedro says, yes, I understand English very well, but when movies have subtitles, I read them anyway and end up bothered by the errors in translation to Spanish. Yes, you understand. That is the reading reflex. You can't help but read it. It's there. And that can be very intrusive and distracting. Pedro says, so we have to think, where are the keys instead of where did I left my keys? Yes. If you lost your keys, one approach is I'm going to intellectually try to find my keys and search for them. I'm going to think about where I last had them, or I'm going to think about my daily activities. And a different approach entirely is to use perception. And in using perception, what I would do is focus my inner telescope on the concept of keys. I'm going to touch the keys with my mind, and then I'm going to feel where those keys are located or how I can reconnect with those keys. It is a completely different approach, and that's the approach of our true mind. That's an effective way to actually navigate reality and navigate the time field. And this intellectual approach, or intellectualizing our way through the time field, is why we die. Thoughts are not in effect. Thinking your way across my studio, because you know something? I don't do the same thing every day. Here, look, now I'm throwing a merkaba ball on the floor. Oh my goodness, now you can't predict that. You can't think about that. You can't know that that's going to be there. You can only perceive it. So this intellectualizing our way through time is a completely ineffective, wanky tool for being able to actually do this effectively and not die. That's why we hit the membrane of death. It's why we die. Chris is agreeing. He says vision versus intellect. That is exactly right. And the intellect is completely skewed and hacked. Erica says, the ego stabilizes as I use my heart and increase its power, and then I can go on to the next level. So another thing about the ego down here and the heart over here, when the more inner silence you cultivate and the faster and stronger your heart field is, the more information you can endure, you can withstand. That when your heart is not moving at a very fast pace, it's like riding a bicycle that's very slow and you're going uphill. You're like, oh, I'm barely moving. It's really easy to get blown over by the wind. And that wind can be a piece of information. It can be something that's troubling or disturbing. Like you see something that you don't like to see about a family member or a friend, like that person's an evil monster. And you get that impression from your insight, and your heart is moving at a slow pace because you're moving up a hill, and it knocks you over. You're like, oh no, my best friend is a horrible, evil, toothy monster. You can't deal with the emotional repercussions, the emotions, here, down here, emotions of perceiving that. So the faster and stronger your heart energy field is, it's like food. The faster your metabolism is. So if you have a slow metabolism and I'm going to feed you a bacon sandwich, that bacon's going to be in there like for a long time. That's going to be like slowly digesting. If you have a super fast metabolism, I feed you that in the morning, like you have already digested that, you've already pooped it out by lunchtime. That's the difference between having a slower moving heart center and a fast energetic heart center. Fast energetic heart center means that you digest your emotional experiences faster. So let's say someone says something crappy to me, but my heart is moving fast. It's moving so fast that their crappy comment comes inside of me, doesn't hurt me at all. I instantaneously digest it and kind of fling it away like mud. Like the mud gets like centrifugal force, like I'm spinning so fast the mud gets flung off of me. And that is really how I have experienced my emotional and social world at this point. Like my heart is at this point moving at a very fast rate, and the slings and arrows or insults or ignorances of other people generally just get, flung off through centrifugal force. And because this is why I'm very lighthearted and very unperturbed and very happy and joyous. Like, it's like water off a duck's back. This is not hurting me, but people can clearly hurt me, and clearly, I have vulnerabilities like anyone, but it's the idea that those things don't bring me down. And same thing with troubling news stories. I read about news stories, I'm like, that's a bunch of BS, spinning fast, fling that BS off of me. Like you digest things faster. And that's what's supposed to happen. So I'm constantly reminded that some people have a slow, energetic metabolism, that they might have been insulted by something or hurt by something days, weeks, months, or years ago, and they're still digesting the bacon sandwich because they're slowly rolling up a hill because their heart is not moving at a very fast pace. So in this time on planet Earth right now, we are getting to have like a rectification. Big bucket, big mop, clean up big stuff. That means we all get to have our hearts moving at a faster rate because we have a lot of perception and healing. We have to accept a lot of crappy things, like the capacity to accept and understand that there are, malevolent, satanic jerk faces that have infested our government. That's a lot to understand, or to understand, like what I was speaking about in last week. Let me drink a little bit of water. The economy of hell. Definitely had some comments from some people in YouTube who were not moving their heart at an effective rate fast enough to be able to accept and digest that information. They're like, oh no, people get stuck on the economy of hell and their consciousness are tortured. Like, yes, this is a very sad truth. I'm sorry to tell you that they're moving slowly up a hill and that information is blowing over their bicycle. So that's the whole idea. The faster more stable our heart is, then the more we can withstand information that comes from the inner telescope, which it ain't always pretty. Sometimes the things that we sense from up here, this sense, it's similar to smell and taste. When you smell and taste something, sometimes you're like, that smells horrible. Like, that smells gross. I don't want to taste that. That is what this is sometimes. Sometimes you touch on something and it's like, that's poop, or that's sexual abuse, or that's something gross. And you have to have the emotional wherewithal to accept the truth of what you have sensed. You're like, yep, that smells, that's gross, because you might be smelling that from someone who you like, or who's a friend, or who you admire. And you have to recognize that you are really feeling that. Erica says, I've just gone through a degree for 4 years. That's what it feels like, overloaded. I understand. Joel says, is compassion the way we make the heart energy spin center faster, or inner silence? So inner silence is one of the ways that you make things spin faster. You temporarily press pause on the verbalized mind and don't put energy into the yellow centers and get distance from that. And then this moves faster. Compassion is sympathetic vibration. Let me go get something. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, I'm walking all the way over here. Did not know I was going to talk about this today. But I borrowed a friend's guitar, okay? So let's talk about sympathetic vibration. So let's say all of these individual guitar strings are different people. If I pluck this string over here, it's making the air vibrate back and forth. And it's actually making all of these other strings vibrate just by being next to the string that is vibrating. And compassion is literally what happens when you are vibrating the strings of your DNA and your energy field, and you are affecting the other strings of other people without touching them. And then let's say this guy vibrates his string, it's affecting you back. That is what compassion is. You are connected via vibration. You are connected via feelings. Compassion does not necessarily mean I want to hug and love you. Does not necessarily mean I want to kiss you. You can be compassionate for like the worst horrible poop, thing in the world, like a turd, a monster, something that's horrible. You can be compassionate for it. It does not mean that you want to hug and love and kiss it. And I'm always saying, like, I'm never telling you, don't hug a demon. Don't hug a demon. Compassion for a demon means you understand, where is it coming from? Why is it motivated in that way? Why is it playing that note? That's what it means. I send out my heart vibration and you can be compassionate towards me. You feel what I'm sending out. And it's the same thing with something that is not a good note. You're like, okay, I feel that note. What am I feeling? And, as I'm saying this, I'm recognizing that my words can be misinterpreted. And I'm asking and encouraging everyone to reach for the nourishment behind my words, not the veneer or the surface of what my words say. Because this is the challenge that I have in using language to try to communicate here. I'm not from around here. You guys all know I'm a walk-in. I'm really used to speaking with diagrams, with pictures, with instantaneous downloads or flashes. It's a nourishment. It's like a type of nourishment, like light that comes into you. And to have to translate that into words, before I come here, before I do the webinars each week, I take extensive notes and I walk around and I think, like, how can I explain this? How can I describe this? How can I get this information across? So I was trying to choose the right words, and it's so challenging. And it's not me, it's the language structure itself. So everyone in these videos, please reach behind or beyond the mere surface of what my words are saying and go to the meaning of what I'm trying to say here. So the meaning of compassion is not to justify or excuse inexcusable behavior, demonic, violent, horrible, rape, abuse behavior, murder. It is not that. I'm not saying, oh, what you really should do is think intellectually and try to wonder about, like, why do people become murderers? No, I'm not trying to do that at all. It is the sense that your music that you're sending out is affecting everyone around you, and everyone around you and their music is reflecting back to you and affecting you. And compassion has to do with recognizing that vibrational partnership, and also that you understand if you hear ugly notes or unto that someone, if I hear music that is bad, it's like that is coming from a poorly tuned guitar. That is how I understand in compassion what I'm perceiving around me. Yeah, Chris says, yes, sympathetic resonance. That is exactly it. So that is also the ethical justification for how I am allowed to be here doing Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I'm affecting everyone with my lasagna music. I'm like, lasagna music, lasagna music, lasagna music. And I'm sending that out to everyone else. And some people are like, I hate that song. I hate that lasagna song. I'm like, tough luck. I'm allowed to sing my lasagna music. But they're also allowed to sing their horrible, whatever, songs of abuse and everything like that. And the genius of the symphony is figuring out where each musician should be in the score, who gets to play louder. So like I say, that this whole symphony of life, it is not about getting rid of organisms or anything like that. It is saying that there's a value to all these organisms, but don't misinterpret me by saying, oh, there's a value to demonic organisms. No. Extremophiles. There are organisms like spiders that live underneath the ocean. They don't breathe. They don't eat regular stuff. They eat nothing but like sulfur that comes off of underwater lava vents. Like they never get to the surface of Earth. They're extremophiles. They live in extreme conditions. They're radioactive spiders that are supposed to live at the bottom of the ocean. Like they're not supposed to be in your bed. They're not supposed to be like with you. So that is how I understand some of these less pleasant note makers, need some less pleasant musicians in reality. Maybe they should be at the bottom of the ocean, eating radioactive sulfur off of the vents there. They should be in a state of entropy. They can be in existence, but they cannot be in existence in your bed, or in your kitchen or whatever. I'm almost about to end level 1. They'll go into level 2, and I have lots to say for that. Joelle says this very well. She says, compassion to me is like understanding the villain's backstory. I think that's a very good description of it, because that information, have insight as to what made the villain be the way they are. But that does not justify or excuse them. It's like, oh, my mommy beat me, and then whatever, I went into the army and I had medical testing. Like, that doesn't matter. That is still not a justification for why you're a horrible monster, but it does help me to understand where the behavior comes from. Pedro says, just remember the other one is you on a bad timeline, having a bad day. That is also really good compassion, the understanding that we are all the same photon with the same point of consciousness moving forward and backwards through time, endlessly embroidering the surface of time. So when you see one of those beings that is playing very poor music, they're at the periphery in their life. They're over here in the time field. They're not in the center of who they really are, that you're experiencing these distorted aspects of self. So let me wrap up level 1. Thank you for all the excellent questions and comments. And let me move on to level 2, where the topic is about the origins of solar consciousness. And so this right now, level 1 was all about the mind. Basically that you have an invader's mind that is not your true mind, and that the invader's mind is also based on perception of, like, fear, the lack of resources, the limitations of resources. None of that is natural or innate to your humanness and to your insight into being in the world. That is you could call it artificial intelligence, or we could call it exotic technology. It is the mind of an exotic race of beings that uses technology, and they don't have connection to the sun and the stars and natural life force energy. So to them, there's never enough. So the implant of the human mind at the level of yellow has as part of it that fear and that sense of there's never enough, we got to get more money, the way that we look at economy, the way that we look at even objective materialism, the idea that we look at matter that is here, we're not looking at energy or spirit or consciousness. That is all a mental overlay. That is not your true mind. That all comes from the invaders, who are literally the genetic squashers who degraded us from being able to use our true mind. So that's like the big takeaway on this presentation. So thank you very much. I'm just going to end this recording, do a brief pause, and then go on to level 2. Thank you.